this weekend moto from around the world. But before I get started, let's get this video to 1,000 likes. Hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel immensely. The biggest story of the week is KTM going bankrupt, going bye-bye, because Stark is going to take over. I'm kidding. Not quite that entertaining. However, there is some rumors that they will actually default and maybe do a Chapter 11, which could potentially help them, because if we know anything about our soon-to-be president, he's gone bankrupt a few times and he's been just fine. However, over there in Austria, they've got something that is called a judicial restructuring proceeding, which is actually going to happen this Friday after Thanksgiving, on actually Black Friday. So they're hoping that they can just wipe everything clean, have an IOU. That's also not going to happen. But it's basically going to give them 90 days to pay back their creditors, because their revenue is down 27% this year, and their operating costs are at a negative 195 million euros, basically $200 million, where last year they were positive 102 million. And yeah, I somewhat blame our administration with what has happened globally as far as taxes going up, all sorts of interesting things going on there. But Donald Trump is now president, so things are already looking better. Look at the stock market. Look at crypto, right? Everyone is trying to make money hand over fist here. And over here in America, you will have lower taxes. You will have potentially no capital gains tax on crypto, which is nuts, right? But that is going full blown into politics. We've heard the bigwigs at the Premier Mobility Group talk about how racing in America, there's too many races with 33, whatever, super motocross championship rounds. There's too many. And they spend, probably $1 million plus per round to try to get to these races. And I sort of feel bad for Chase Sexton of anyone, because they've been cutting costs. We've heard Gas going under, which is under that hierarchy of KTM. Husky is restructuring. And what they are talking about is basically somewhat halting operating performances by over $1 billion in 2025 and 2026. These are amazing motorcycles. And to see these guys potentially file for bankruptcy is going to be awful. So they're going to lay off around 400 people. And we will see what happens to KTM. But as of right now, hopefully Chase Sexton's check has cleared, because they're probably not going to be giving him as much R&D when it comes to performance with the team, where Ryan Dungey was given everything. I wouldn't even be surprised if Roger DeCoster ends up moving somewhere else, because we've seen it happen with Suzuki, where when things aren't going well, what's the first thing to kind of get cut? It is racing, because that is an expenditure. Yes, it's advertising. We all buy bikes based on who's winning. However, when your bottom line is basically you're going broke because you're negative $100 million, well, you got to do some real thinking here on what can happen. And I wouldn't even be surprised if some of these motorcycles are more expensive because they're not just being produced as much. There's not an overwhelming availability of bikes on the market. If you go down to any bike shop now after COVID, man, you had a plethora of motorcycles that just went off the shelf because everyone was sitting at home, couldn't do anything. But now, because costs are so high and just inflation is so high, cost of living is high, gas is high, everything is high, people aren't really spending money to go do hobbies as of right now. So I feel for these guys, and this is really one of the motorcycles that I was thinking about buying. I've been a massive Husky guy for years. So the best of luck goes out to these guys, and I don't believe that they're actually going to file bankruptcy, but this is a last-ditch effort, and it does not look from a PR standpoint. So let's all just make a little wish this Christmas that KTM is still around and Chase Sexton has got the resources to try to beat the likes of Jet and Prado this coming year, along with Tomac and Deegan and everybody. Deegan, who knows if he's going to race a 450 in 2026 in the outdoors, but I digress. There's some other interesting stuff that has gone on where an individual, Vince Freeze, ended up hurting Dino again and taking out Colt, taking out a bunch of individuals because he's just rough. Like, he probably belongs in arena cross. However, it's one of those things. If you get no smack on the wrist, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And Dino speaks out about basically him getting hit. And Dino essentially says that he's had no problem with him since A1 of this year, but basically cleaned him out, and he's got a torn labrum, so he's out of the World Supercross Championship. Some of the comments are funny. Jason Thomas says, "I, for one, am shocked." I like that. My buddy AJ over here says, "Where's Wesley Pike when you need him?" Exactly. And you got, for F's sakes, from potentially the e-bike winner for the championship over in Arena Cross with Bogle over there. Colt Nichols says, "Hate to see it. Heal up." He's one of those guys that ends up getting taken out as well from this individual. However, what's also interesting is he wasn't even supposed to be in the main event round 2 of World Supercross over there in Australia because he didn't point out. And World Supercross actually has to have a media update saying that as the sanctioning body of World Supercross, the FIM last night made a decision in relation to the race process error which occurred prior to Saturday's round, where Vince Freeze was mistakenly included in the super final lineup instead of Matt Moss, CDR Yamaha supported by Star Racing. Such error was not due to the fault of any rider, team, or World Supercross. I like how they say it wasn't their fault, but they're the ones that ended up making the error. In accordance with FIM, the FIM has since confirmed that the race results still stand as completed despite the error. So I reached out to CDR Yamaha, and they basically told me that they were compiling the results from race 1 and 2, not race 1 and 2 and 3. So there was an entire main event that nobody had points on, and they were going to line everybody up based on races 1 and 2. So therefore, Matt Moss wasn't there. So I feel for CDR Yamaha. That is definitely a mishap that should have never happened, especially with a series that is in their 3rd year as of right now. And yes, I do want World Supercross to succeed, and I'm a big fan. They have done a good job, and Eli Tomac is going to be the 2024 championship. I just see it, but I would love to see Kenny come back and win the last round at least. In some other news, yes, the Baja 1000 has concluded, but we have a Supercross rider. This is the guy that's the privateer that has the little itty bitty van that lives with a raccoon. He did it solo with 27 hours and 32 minutes. So make sure you go give Greco a follow. He did something that not many people can even dream about doing. I've done a 10-hour race before, and man, it sucks. And I don't want to do 3 times as much. This guy is just crazy in the head for just doing that. So hats off to him for completing it. And we also had the mini-O's that are going on this year. Racer TV is doing an impeccable job with covering everything, but some of the winners as of right now for 250A, Caden Dundney, he's been winning the Pro Sport and the 250A. 250B, you have Landed Hearts and him winning the 450B as well. Pro Sport, we've got Avery Long. Good to see him up doing that. Schoolboy, Tristan Perrette, I believe. And in Super Mini, you've got Carson Wood coming out on top. And in closing, I want to have a moment of silence for Malcolm Smith. He ended up passing away, dying from Parkinson's disease. So condolences go out to him and his family.